Ever wonder what makes some people so successful? Not just like financially, but like building a life that matters.
Yeah.
Today we're diving into Principios, by Ray Dalio, the
Yeah.
hedge fund guy,
Right.
who's all about honesty, even when it's uncomfortable and like weirdly loves making mistakes.
What's so interesting about Dalio, he really leans into those failures,
Mm,
uses them to build success.
right.
Like, look at his early career.
Okay.
Harvard, Wall Street, he has wins early on.
Yeah.
Like, predicted that commodities boom back in the 70s,
Uh-huh.
but then the 80s happened.
Oh yeah, wasn't that the big economic crash prediction that, well, didn't quite happen?
And it wasn't just like a small miscalculation.
Right.
Dalio was public about it, predicting a full-blown depression. Total blow to his reputation. But instead of ignoring it, he like dove right into what went wrong.
Mm.
That's where this whole principles thing takes off.
So it's like he treated that failure as a case study almost.
Yeah.
Not, I messed up, but what can I learn from this so I never do it again?
Exactly. Dalio's big idea is that reality, success, failure, it's all like this big machine, right?
Yeah.
Cause and effect everywhere if we can just see it.
Right.
And his principles are like the user manual for that machine.
And a key part of that is the machine's always evolving too.
Absolutely.
Like what worked yesterday might not cut it today.
Dalio's a huge believer in evolution, not just, Darwin, but ideas, markets, even ourselves evolving.
Right.
He'd say adapting is the skill for the 21st century.
Yeah. Which is kind of scary
Yeah.
when you think how fast things change, especially technology.
Oh, absolutely.
What's cutting edge one minute is outdated the next.
And Dalio learned that the hard way.
Right. After that 80s miscalculation.
Right. He realized his whole understanding of economic cycles, it was outdated. So what'd he do? Back to the drawing board. Studied past crises, the Great Depression, Weimar Republic, to refine his models. He adapted.
So it's not just about accepting reality, but actively getting closer to the truth, even when it hurts.
Yes.
Which I think that connects to his idea of the two U's.
Yeah.
That constant battle between like our emotional side and our logical side.
Such a good point. Dalio says when we're deciding things, especially under pressure,
Right.
easy to let emotions take over. We get scared or greedy and make decisions we regret. His principles are supposed to help us use that higher part of our brain.
The logical part.
Yes. The part that can think clearly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, I know I should eat healthy, exercise.
Right.
But then I see a donut.
There it is.
And suddenly I'm making excuses. Those moments, having clear principles would be huge.
Huge. And for Dalio, this goes for everything. Personal choices to how he built his company.
Right, Bridgewater, his hedge fund. Which it's known for having a unique culture.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah, radical transparency, right. The employee baseball cards, constant feedback. Sounds intense.
Intense, putting it mildly. Imagine a workplace where everyone, and I mean everyone, can critique each other.
Even the CEO.
Especially the CEO. That's Bridgewater.
Wow. I can see how that'd be intimidating, but also kind of refreshing. No office politics, just straight up feedback.
That's the whole idea. Dalio believes that conflict, done right, can be super productive.
Okay.
Like, think of a family that argues.
Right.
Can be messy, but ultimately it can bring everyone closer. Better decisions come from it.
So it's about making disagreement not a personal attack, but part of the process.
Exactly.
Though you'd need a certain kind of person to thrive there.
Oh, absolutely. Dalio's super intentional about who he hires.
Yeah. What does he look for?
Skills. Those you can teach. He wants character, common sense, creativity.
Interesting.
People who aren't just smart, but humble, honest. Who believe in a true meritocracy of ideas.
So finding people align with those core principles, even if they don't agree on every single decision.
Yes. It's about the bigger picture.
A team bought into something larger than themselves.
Right. And that's what lets them handle the disagreements come out stronger.
So we've got this foundation. Embrace reality, understand those two U's, build a culture of honesty.
It's a lot.
Like intellectual boot camp.
Yeah.
What's next in our Dalio deep dive?
Well, now that we get the philosophy, let's get practical. How does Dalio actually use these principles in his life at Bridgewater?
Right.
That's where it gets really interesting. Remember we were saying how Dalio's obsessed with reality, working like some kind of machine?
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't just watch those gears turn. He builds systems that work the same way.
Ooh. Yeah.
At Bridgewater, that means some, let's say, unique tools and tech.
Right. The baseball cards for employees. That's the one that always gets me. Like something out of a movie, everyone's got their stats on display. How's that supposed to work?
It's about getting everyone on the same page, strengths, weaknesses, the whole deal, even especially their own. Hard to have those productive disagreements if you don't have a way to talk about how people work best.
So instead of just vague ideas, you've got this almost like gamified system for understanding each other's strengths.
Yeah.
Is it just work styles, or does it go deeper?
Dalio would say knowing someone's values is even more important than skills.
Oh, interesting.
Baseball cards are one piece of a much bigger puzzle, right? Figuring out how people tick, what motivates them, where they fit best.
Makes you think, what would my baseball card even say?
Right.
And knowing that, would it change how I work with my team?
It's a whole different way of thinking about, like, the office dynamic.
Totally.
And it's not just about, like, assessments. Dalio's got tools for feedback as things happen, decision-making, too, like the dot collector.
Oh, right. That's where everyone's secretly scoring each other's ideas, right?
Oh, too secretly.
A little brutal, but also kind of brilliant. How's that work in practice?
Okay, so picture a meeting. Everyone's got their tablet or whatever.
Uh-huh.
As ideas get thrown out, you rate them. Clarity, how doable it is, does it fit our goals, whatever matters in that moment.
So I'm seeing how that could help, especially with, like, strong personalities in the room.
Oh, yeah.
Takes the ego out of it, at least a bit.
And the dot collector, it shows everyone those ratings live.
Oh, wow.
So you see consensus building or not building right there. Makes you explain why you agree or disagree, and those quieter voices, they get heard.
Yeah, the ones who might not speak up in a normal meeting, but with all that data, all that feedback, doesn't it get overwhelming? Like analysis paralysis.
That's where the human part comes in. The tools, they help. They don't replace judgment.
Okay.
They give info, but the team still has to make sense of it, make the decisions.
So it's interesting because it's super structured, data-driven, but then you need that gut feeling, the empathy, reading between the lines.
And Dalio knows that. He's not making robots.
Right.
He's trying to help people operate at their best, make those rational choices, and learn from the screw-ups more effectively.
Which reminds me, the pain button. This one sounds intriguing, maybe scary.
Definitely one of the more, shall we say, creative inventions. Imagine an app to log your emotions. Stressed, angry, frustrated, whatever throws you off.
Like a mood tracker, but more intense.
Oh, much more. See, the app, it makes you come back to those moments later when you're calm.
So instead of reacting right then, you're forced to think about why you felt that way.
Exactly. It asks these questions, helps you unpack it. What set you off? What were you assuming in that moment? Could you have reacted differently?
It's like a therapist in your pocket, but instead of childhood trauma, it's that annoying email from earlier.
And here's the best part. The pain button, it tracks patterns over time.
Oh, no way.
What triggers you most, how often you're feeling certain ways, if the coping mechanisms you're trying are even working.
So it's not just venting, it's using that emotional data to actually get better, make better choices.
Precisely. Improving decisions, relationships, your whole well-being.
Gotta admit, I'm fascinated and terrified. It's like Dalio took that pain plus reflection idea and made it an algorithm.
And it doesn't stop there. He's got tools and algorithms for everything. Managing risk at Bridgewater, how they use resources, even automating some of the investment stuff.
Wow.
Trying to take human bias out of the equation as much as possible.
Which, let's be real, is a huge goal, but also kind of scary. Like, where's the line between gut feeling and letting the machines decide? And what if they're wrong?
$1,000,000 questions. Dalio even wrestles with them in Principios. He knows relying on tech this much has its downsides.
It really makes you think, the more we depend on algorithms, AI, what does it even mean to be human then? How do we make sure these tools are used for good?
And that's a whole other deep dive.
It's easy to hear all this and think, okay, cool for a billionaire hedge fund guy, but what about the rest of us?
Right.
Like, can these principles work in the real world, outside that Bridgewater bubble?
That's the question, isn't it? And Dalio would probably say, yeah, it's not for everyone. It takes a certain type to handle that much intensity, that constant honesty.
For sure, not every office needs a dot collector judging their every thought.
Right.
But I'm curious, what are some of the things that could translate? Like everyday wisdom, even if we're not managing, billions of dollars.
One of the big ones is how Dalio sees problems. Not as failures, but like puzzles to figure out.
Okay, yeah.
He talks about how our instinct is to get defensive, blame someone,
Totally.
but that almost never actually fixes anything.
It's like, you can be right, or you can actually solve the problem.
Exactly. Dalio would say, instead of who messed up, it's What caused this and how do we stop it from happening again? That mindset shift is huge no matter what you do.
So it's taking ownership, being solutions-focused, not getting stuck in the blame game. I guess ties into his whole thoughtful disagreement thing.
Absolutely. Not about avoiding conflict, but doing it right. And honestly, that's a life skill. Relationships, work projects, even arguing with your family,
Right.
saying, hey, that's your idea, not you I'm disagreeing with, and being open to being wrong yourself.
Way easier said than done, especially when you're passionate about something.
Oh, tell me about it.
But yeah, if you could pull that off, imagine the conversations you could have.
And the relationships you could build, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where Dalio's focus on self-awareness is so key. We all have blind spots, right?
Totally.
And the best way to find them is having people around who'll call you out respectfully.
Being open to feedback, even the tough stuff.
Yeah.
And not just hearing it, but really taking it in, growing from it.
It's all about growth, right? Personal, professional, doesn't matter. And that kind of leads us to another big Dalio idea. Finding your unique value.
Okay, yeah, this is where it goes beyond just work stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like figuring out what makes you you and how that helps the world.
Exactly. Dalio believes everyone has something special to offer, some mix of skills, experience, whatever, that makes them valuable. And his thing is, find that value, use it. Start a business, write that book, even just make your community better, whatever your thing is.
Finding that purpose, connecting to something bigger, that's huge for people, especially these days when it's easy to feel lost.
Oh, for sure. And Dalio walks the walk. Yeah, he built a crazy successful company, but he's also big into giving back, the environment, sharing what he knows through writing, speaking.
It's like he's saying, this is what worked for me, now you go find what works for you.
Exactly.
It's permission to own your life, be bold, make a difference, and hey, mess up along the way.
Because for Dalio, those mess-ups, they're not the end, they're how you learn.
So we're wrapping up this Dalio deep dive. And honestly, it's a lot to process,
Dense book, for sure.
but also super motivating.
It's a call to action almost, wouldn't you say?
Totally. Like, go look at your own life. What are your principles? And are you building the future you want that reflects those values?
Big questions.
And on that note, one last thing for you to think about. Dalio talks about making your own life algorithm, systems, habits, whatever, that help you actually live by those values. So we got to ask, what would your life algorithm look like? What would you code into it? And how would you use it to build a life that matters? Something to chew on today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the mind of Ray Dalio. Until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep aiming for that excellence.